I'm going to start this review by saying this headset probably isn't for you. Why, you ask? Well, in recent years, headsets have generally been adding more and more features and becoming increasingly complex. Whether that be some kind of noise cancelling, lights on every conceivable surface, or companion apps that let you customize all kinds of things, gaming headsets these days are often evaluated on the number of things they do. Beyerdynamic have clearly looked at the state of things and said, nah. Instead, they've focused on the one thing that few other gaming headsets do right now, the listening experience. The MMX 300 Pro, which is an upgrade to their MMX 300, is an uncompromising, no-nonsense headset that aims to deliver a premium audio experience above everything else. It also has a pretty damn good microphone. If audio quality isn't your top priority, then I can confidently say you should go check out one of my other headset reviews. The MMX 300 Pro isn't for you. If, however, you value sound quality and have experience with other high-end audio equipment, the 300 Pro is something that you should definitely pay attention to. So yeah, the MMX 300 Pro is incredibly light on features. In fact, there are no controls on the headset at all. The boom mic does flip up and down, although this doesn't mute it. You do get a volume wheel and a mute toggle on the cable, but as far as things that you can control, that's it. There's no additional connectivity options, and it doesn't let you play around with the EQ settings. This is the definition of plug and play. It's a low impedance headset at 48 ohms, meaning that you can drive them with basically anything, including the Switch in portable mode, smartphones, and wireless controllers. Although, I've found that they do like a little extra juice to really extract the maximum out of them. This also means that if you like really loud volume levels, you might want to use an amp. The frequency response is 5 Hz to 40 kHz, which is not only well beyond what us mere humans can actually hear, it's well beyond the range of most other headsets. What allows them to achieve this wide response range is the in-house designed Stellar 45 drivers. These are the same drivers that you'll find in some of Beyerdynamic's professional studio headphones, like the DT900 Pro X. Now, sound isn't the only thing that's important for delivering a high-quality audio experience, especially for gaming. Comfort is critical, and again, the 300 Pro has been designed with this in mind. Designed and built in Germany, the MMX 300 Pro comes across as something that's intended to last for many years. The yokes and headband are made from metal, while the headband cover is a soft but firm faux leather that can be easily removed. The rest of the construction, including the ear cups, is plastic, but it doesn't feel thin or cheap, and this obviously helps keep the weight down. They're reasonably light at 315 grams, not including the cable. The ear pads are made out of velour, and they have a depth of 25mm. Now, my ears do slightly touch the cloth covering the drivers inside. This hasn't caused me any issues so far, but as the pads compress over time, I can see this potentially being a problem down the line. The inside is moderately padded, so unlike some other brands, a little bit of contact is fine. You can get different pads from companies like Wicked Cushions if a thicker pad is your preference. I do find them to be quite a hot headset. Closed-back headsets and headphones generally are, and although the velour pads do breathe, they still heat up. You non-Australians will need to take this with a grain of salt though, because I reviewed these during summer, where daytime temperatures have been hovering around the mid to low 30s. That's centigrade. Clamping pressure is on the stronger side, but I never found this to be an issue. I should point out that I wear glasses too, and pad swapping could make them less comfortable depending on the pads, although this is purely speculation, I haven't actually tried. The headband design incorporates something called a fontanelle recess, which is supposed to limit the amount of pressure on the pointy bit of your head. I have a pretty pointy head, so this is especially welcome. The cable is 2.5 meters long or just over 8 feet, and it can be removed. It's pretty thick, and as a result it's quite heavy, although it does feel durable. It splits the mic and the audio into separate plugs, but it does come with a Y adapter. So if you're not using it with something that has separate inputs or you're on console, it will work with a single input. You get a big mic mute switch on the cable that's easy to find. There's no audio indication or light on the headset though, so you'll need to look at the cable to know if it's muted. The volume wheel is less easy to find and is probably the only part of the design I don't like. The rest of the build feels like it was designed to survive the apocalypse, and this tiny thin wheel seems out of place. That said, you don't really need it, seeing as you can adjust the volume on the connected device. Thankfully, it's not prone to accidental adjustment, and maybe that's why it's so small. So I just leave it at the max setting. The other design choice you may not like is that the ear cups don't swivel 180 degrees, and this can make it a bit uncomfortable to wear around your neck. So this isn't a headset that's been designed for portability, despite it working with portable devices. I'm going to say that this is the most resolving headset I've heard to date. It's incredibly detailed and every frequency is clear without it sounding clinical. It's a fairly V-shaped tuning, meaning that it has plenty of bass and treble. The sub-bass is fantastic, probably the best sub-bass I've heard in a headset thus far. It really kicks hard and you feel every explosion, thud and crunch. Mid-bass has impact too, with no bloat or muddiness. This tuning is equally impressive for music, especially bass-heavy tracks, so all of your dance music, and it sounds particularly fantastic for metal. I've been blasting Rip and Tear from the Doom soundtrack on repeat since I've had them. Now, I know for a lot of people, the inability to create custom EQ levels without an amp or additional software probably sounds like a huge disadvantage. Some people really like FPS modes or performance modes, and I totally understand why. I want to counter this thinking though. You see, FPS modes are essentially a workaround for a lack of detail. They modify things like frequencies and dynamic range compensation to help you hear footsteps and other audio cues more easily. The problem is that you generally give up a good listening experience in the process, and these modes often sound extremely shouty and are hard to listen to for long periods. The 300 Pro lets you hear other players clear as day, without the need for a specific EQ profile. Imaging or positional audio is excellent. Could you still add one of these EQ modes to it? Sure, I experimented with a scout mode on the G8, and while it does make everything super crunchy, I'd argue that this level of EQing is unnecessary unless you're hard of hearing. And I think the 300 Pro gives you enough detail to not need these modes. Now, in spite of all the positive things I've said about the tuning, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. The biggest is the soundstage. This is quite a narrow sounding headset, even for a closed back. If you want a big, expansive soundstage for those epic open world games, there are better solutions for that, one of which I have an upcoming video about. For competitive games though, you'll want to hear everything clearly, so I understand why they've been tuned like this. There is a however here, and that's virtual surround sound. Simulated surround sound, like Sony's Tempest Audio on the PS5, can mitigate this issue. How well will depend on the virtual solution you're using, but with the PS5 you get a nice sense of space without completely trashing the balance or losing a noticeable amount of detail. The only other potential downside that I can think of is the bass. I figure this will only be a problem for a small group of people, but if you don't like a lot of bass and prefer a neutral sound, the 300 Pro doesn't really offer that. Sure, you could EQ it, but you'd just be trying to undo what it was fundamentally designed to sound like. The microphone, which you're listening to now, is pretty basic in terms of its design. It doesn't have a fancy retractable system like some other headsets, and the lack of flip to mute is a curious choice given how common this feature is. It also doesn't detach. This is another reason why it's not ideal for on the go. At the end of the day, what really matters is how it sounds, and once again, it delivers a top-tier performance. It's a cardioid mic, which helps cut out ambient noise without the need for software ANC. The frequency response is 20Hz to 20 kHz, which, like the drivers, is quite wide, allowing it to capture the full range of frequencies. One disappointing missing feature is side tone. This is the ability to hear your own voice inside the headset. You can obviously add this using a third-party solution like software or an amp, but out of the box the headset doesn't support it. For comparison, this is what the Audeze Maxwell sounds like, without its ANC active or mic-specific EQ applied. And this is what the JBL Quantum 910 sounds like. I threw this one in because it has a condenser capsule and a much more narrow frequency range, which is a common setup that you'll find with lots of other headset mics. At $500 Australian, this may come across as a very bare bones headset. And yeah, if you're looking for a feature-rich solution that has loads of customization, the MMX 300 Pro doesn't offer much. If sound quality is what matters above everything else, then you're in the right place. This is the most detailed closed-back headset I've tested yet. Without virtual surround sound, it might not give you the wide soundstage that you want for an immersive experience, although the excellent imaging and sub-bass does mitigate this somewhat. You can use it as a plug-and-play solution, although pairing it with an amp will unlock its full potential. Its design does limit its practical utility, meaning it's best suited for setups where you remain stationary, but for this application, there's not a lot that performs as well as it does. Overall, I can recommend the Beyerdynamic MMX 300 Pro to audio enthusiasts and/or anyone looking for a competitive edge without resorting to dramatic EQ modes.